What are kind of your thoughts? We kind of jumped into a lot of the offseason there and some other stuff that I wanted to talk about just with it being the All-Star break. But getting back to this year, um, what are just your end of year thoughts for the last 27 games of this season?
Oh, man. It's going to be a rough last 27 games. I don't envision us suddenly turning the page and becoming world beaters in any way. However, I would like to see some steady improvements from guys like Blake Wesley, Victor Wembanyama as far as consistency and understand controlling that fatigue that we've kind of seen start to attack his rookie season late in the year. Um, and really just better cohesion overall. Like we've seen improvements defensively, we've seen it in halves, we've seen it in quarters. We haven't seen it much for full games. I think maybe one or two times we've seen a full game played completely the way we're supposed to play with pace and good defense. I would like to see a couple more of those as the season comes to an end.
Yeah, and I think we will to an extent. Like I mentioned earlier, there's going to be teams that are resting guys for the playoffs, and we're
Mm.
going to take advantage in some of those scenarios. I think it will be reminiscent, to last season in that way. But I'm really not convinced, Ethan. With 27 games left, I am not convinced that we get 12 wins in those 27 games. And that
Right.
is what we need to have a better record than last season, because last season we finished 22 and
Mm.
60. And so, I was just thinking about this, and I'm thinking, okay, the likelihood is probably that we do finish with a worse record than last season. Um, and then I'm just thinking about, oh, what does that do for the offseason talking points and stuff like that?
Mm.
Um, and I'm sure there will be a lot of that. There will be a lot of craziness and a lot of just, in my opinion, outrageous stuff. Um, but with all of that being said, Ethan, I still have enjoyed this season much more than I did last year. And that's probably just because we get to watch Victor every single
Hmm.
time that we turn on a Spurs game. Um, but even then, like when you see the way that we've been able to see the players, it does really all revolve around him at the end of the day. I was trying to, try to think of a way to put it to give some other guys credit. Like Devin, it really has been fun to watch his development this season. I know it's been rough for Jeremy, but it's also been nice to see him rebound after how the point guard experiment went. And then getting back to Devin, like I said, just getting to see him be consistent, over show what he showed us in the 36 games we saw last year, over a now at this point, almost 60 game span. Um, there's been a lot of fun stuff to see there. But mainly the thing that has been fun to watch is them building chemistry with Victor. And then when you finally see things right, even though it's not consistent, um, you can start to see the flashes of how things could potentially look
Hmm.
when the Spurs build some consistency and get some more experience under their belt.
1000%. 1000%. And you know what? Just to add one more thing to this last 27 games, I'm going to go out on a limb here, Jude. I'm going to say the player that turns it around the most in these last 27 games and plays the most better, if that makes sense.
I know who you're going for. I already know. I can read your mind. Go ahead.
I don't know.
Go ahead.
Malachi Branham.
Okay, I can't read your mind. Never mind. I take it back. I thought you were going to
Which
go Zach.
no, I'm going to go with Malachi Branham. I don't think Zach's done for this year. I think the rest of the year will be the same. But I think Malachi Branham has an opportunity
Interesting.
here. We saw him get a few more games under his belt as we approached All Star break, where he was getting meaningful minutes again. I think he turns it around and comes back to not like crazy great, but just closer to what we saw from him last season.
I mean, he's going to have the opportunity. That's for
Hmm.
sure. And, when you mentioned that last year, he kind of turned it on later in the year, too, which we mentioned that was similar to kind of how it worked his freshman year at Ohio State. Now, we don't want that as much as that was fun last season to talk about. We don't necessarily want that to be a trend for
Hmm.
Malachi. We wanted to be able to build that consistency throughout a season. And we also don't want the success to just kind of be also in the end of the year where, like I mentioned, where they're
Guys are
playing maybe
resting.
right, you're playing some third stringers, et cetera, et cetera. Um, but that's interesting, Ethan. To be honest with you, I'm not as confident in that. but he definitely has the opportunity to. So we'll see if you end up being right on that. And that's something to keep an eye on, because with him
Mm.
getting Doug's minutes now, like there's going to be more of a spotlight on that. Like, because you just said that, I'm going to be paying attention to that more in the Kings game tonight.